Right now, as you watch this video, something catastrophic is unfolding across the Middle East. Israel has just bombed Iranian oil fields, and in response, Iran is targeting the energy infrastructure of the entire Gulf region. Qatar, which provides 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, is under attack. Tel Aviv is being pummeled by ballistic missiles with cluster warheads that no air defense system on Earth can stop. And the man who could have negotiated an end to all of this just got assassinated. Stick around, because what happens next will blow your mind. This is no longer a contained conflict. This is the beginning of something that could reshape the entire global order. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why both sides are now locked into a path where there is no off-ramp and no negotiated peace. If you want to stay informed about geopolitical developments that will affect your life and the world around you, smash that like button and subscribe to this channel. Every click helps spread awareness about what is really happening behind the headlines. Let me walk you through exactly what has unfolded in the last 72 hours. Because the mainstream media is not giving you the full picture. They are showing you fragments and sound bites, but they are not connecting the dots. And once you see how all of this fits together, you will never look at this conflict the same way again. It started with an Israeli strike on Iranian oil fields. Now, on the surface, this might seem like just another escalation in a long series of attacks between these two nations. But this was different. This was a direct assault on Iran's economic lifeline. And when you attack a nation's economy at that level, you are not sending a message. You are trying to cripple their ability to function as a state. The Iranians responded exactly as many analysts predicted they would. They did not just strike back at Israel, they went after the energy infrastructure of the Gulf Cooperation Council nations. And this is where everything changes. Because the entire basis of the global economy is cheap energy. Without it, supply chains collapse, manufacturing grinds to a halt, prices for everything from food to fuel skyrocket, and the world as we know it begins to unravel. Qatar is now under attack. Let me repeat that. Qatar, the nation that provides 1/5 of the world's liquefied natural gas, is being targeted by Iranian strikes. This is not a theoretical scenario anymore. This is happening right now. And if you think this will not affect you wherever you are watching from, think again. The ripple effects of disrupted energy supplies will reach every corner of the planet. But here's what makes the situation even more terrifying. Both sides in this conflict are pursuing what strategists call maximalist objectives. This means neither side is interested in a limited conflict or a negotiated settlement. Both sides want total victory. And when two nuclear-capable adversaries pursue maximalist aims, the potential for catastrophic escalation becomes almost inevitable. Let us break down what each side actually wants, because understanding their objectives is the key to understanding why this war may have no end in sight. The United States and Israel are focused on destroying Iran's capacity to function as a nation-state. This is not about containing Iran or deterring future aggression. This is about fundamentally dismantling the Islamic Republic. The strategy involves multiple components. First, there is the decapitation campaign targeting Iranian leadership. We have seen this play out dramatically in recent days. Second, there is the economic warfare targeting Iran's oil production and export capabilities. Third, and this is where it gets truly dark, there are plans to eventually target civilian critical infrastructure, including water supplies. And finally, there is a divide and rule strategy aimed at exploiting ethnic tensions within Iran to break the country apart into smaller, more manageable enclaves. This is what analysts call balkanization. Now stay with me here, because the Iranian strategy is equally extreme, but in a completely different direction. The Iranians understand that they cannot defeat the United States and Israel in a conventional military confrontation. They simply do not have the firepower. So instead, their strategy is to make the cost of this war so catastrophically high that the entire global system collapses. They want to destroy the world economy. And the way you do that is by attacking the energy infrastructure of the Gulf states. Think about it. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar. These nations collectively control a massive percentage of global oil and gas production. If their facilities are destroyed or rendered inoperable, the price of energy will skyrocket to levels we have never seen. Every economy on Earth will be affected. And in that chaos, Iran hopes to find leverage to reshape the entire global order. This is not speculation. This is the strategic logic that Iranian planners have been developing for decades. They have studied asymmetric warfare. They have built proxy forces throughout the region. They have stockpiled ballistic missiles specifically designed to overwhelm air defenses. And now they are putting all of that preparation into action. But here is where the story takes an even darker turn. And I need you to pay close attention to this, because it explains why rational calculation may no longer apply to this conflict. There are powerful voices within Israel who are not distressed by the destruction raining down on their cities. In fact, they are celebrating it. One of the more influential rabbis in Jerusalem has been speaking publicly about how this war of destruction will bring about the coming of the Messiah. He predicted it would happen on a specific day. and he is not alone in this belief. Now, you might be tempted to dismiss this as fringe thinking, but these voices have real influence in Israeli politics. And when significant portions of a nation's leadership believe that apocalyptic destruction is actually a precondition for divine threat, you cannot analyze their behavior through a purely geopolitical lens. You have to understand the eschatological dimension, the belief that end times prophecy is being fulfilled through this conflict. This is why I keep saying you cannot understand what is happening in the Middle East right now using conventional strategic analysis alone. There are religious and ideological factors at play that transcend normal calculations of cost and benefit. And when leaders believe they are instruments of divine will, the usual constraints on their behavior simply do not apply. Let me shift gears for a moment and talk about what the next phase of this war might look like. Because if you think things are bad now, I need to prepare you for what could be coming. Eventually, the Americans will have no choice but to launch a ground invasion of Iran. Air power alone cannot achieve the maximalist objectives they have set for themselves. You cannot dismember a nation state with bombs alone. You need boots on the ground. And when that happens, we will see mission creep on a scale not witnessed since the Iraq War. One possible attack vector is Karg Island. This small island in the Persian Gulf is where Iran stores approximately 9% of its oil for export. The strategic logic is straightforward. Take Karg Island, and you cripple Iran's ability to fund its war effort. But here's the problem. Karg Island is easy to take, but almost impossible to defend. The coastline is vulnerable. The logistics are nightmarish. And before long, American forces would need to expand their footprint to secure the surrounding areas. That means confronting the Zagros Mountains, one of the most formidable natural defensive barriers on Earth. This is how mission creep works. You start with a limited objective, you achieve it, but then you realize you cannot hold what you have taken without expanding further. So you expand, and then you need to expand again. And before you know it, you are committed to an occupation that has no clear endpoint. We saw this in Iraq, we saw this in Afghanistan, and we may be about to see it again in Iran. But there is another potential escalation vector that analysts are watching very closely, and this one involves Pakistan. Right now, the Iranians are attacking Saudi Arabia. If Saudi Arabia formally declares war on Iran, something extraordinary happens. Saudi Arabia has a mutual defense pact with Pakistan. This means that if Saudi Arabia has attacked Pakistan, it is obligated to come to its defense. And Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Let me say that again because I want you to fully grasp the implications. If Saudi Arabia enters this war, as a formal belligerent Pakistan could be drawn in. And once Pakistan is in the war, nuclear warheads are at play. Now I want to be clear about my assessment here. I do not believe tactical nuclear weapons will be used in this conflict. The taboo against nuclear use remains incredibly strong. But the mere presence of nuclear-armed states as active participants changes the entire dynamic. It raises the stakes exponentially. It makes every decision more consequential. And it introduces the possibility of catastrophic miscalculation in ways that did not exist before. There's also the geographic dimension to consider. If Pakistan enters this war, it opens up an eastern front against Iran. American forces could potentially attack from both the west through the Persian Gulf and from the east through Pakistani territory. This would stretch Iranian defenses to the breaking point. And it would transform this conflict from a regional war into something approaching a world war. But wait, because the potential for expansion does not stop there. The Iranians have proxy forces throughout the region. And when the time is right, they will activate those proxies to close off additional maritime choke points. The Houthis in Yemen have already demonstrated their ability to disrupt shipping in the Red Sea. If they escalate their operations, they could effectively close off the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Combined with closure of the Strait of Hormuz, this would create a catastrophic situation. Two of the world's most critical maritime passages would be blocked simultaneously. The Gulf states would be completely isolated, and the world's access to cheap energy would be severed. At that point, we could see nations that have tried to stay out of this conflict dragged in against their will. South Korea and Japan are almost entirely dependent on energy imports from the Gulf region. If that energy is cut off, their economies will collapse within weeks. They may have no choice but to join a military coalition to reopen those shipping lanes. And suddenly, this Middle East conflict has become a truly global war. I want to pause here and address something that is creating significant speculation online. There are questions about whether Benjamin Netanyahu is still alive. Now, before you dismiss this as conspiracy theory, let me explain why these questions are being asked. Netanyahu has not been seen in a public setting for an unusually long period. There have been cabinet meetings that he normally chairs, and he has not been present. There are videos circulating that appear to show him giving speeches, but analysts have identified these as AI-generated fakes. The tells are there if you know what to look for. The lip sync is slightly off, the lighting is inconsistent, the mannerisms are not quite right. There is one image supposedly showing Netanyahu visiting a cafe in the mountains near Jerusalem. The idea apparently was to prove he is alive and well, but the logistics do not add up. That cafe is about 50 minutes drive from where he would normally be. If he wanted to prove he was alive, why not simply chair a cabinet meeting or get on a phone call with world leaders? That could be verified. Why this strange photo op at a remote cafe? Now, my personal assessment is that Netanyahu is probably not dead, but he could be injured, or he could be hiding in a secure location while the bombardment of Tel Aviv continues. What we do know for certain is that the Iranians have been remarkably successful at targeting senior Israeli officials. The head of Mossad was killed. Netanyahu's residence in Tel Aviv was directly targeted. The precision of these strikes raises troubling questions about Israeli security and intelligence. But here is the development that has analysts most concerned. Ali Larijani, the de facto head of the Iranian war effort, has been assassinated. This has been confirmed by Iranian authorities. And this single event may have made a negotiated end to this war essentially impossible. Let me explain why killing Larijani was such a catastrophic mistake from a strategic perspective. And this requires understanding something fundamental about how wars end. Think of it this way. Imagine two street gangs at war with each other. Both gangs are structured as hierarchies, with a leader at the top and various factions below. Now, during a gang war, both sides typically avoid killing each other's leader. Why? Two reasons. First, the leader is the person with the authority to negotiate and implement a peace agreement. War is ultimately politics by other means. The goal is usually not to kill everyone on the other side, but to achieve favorable terms in a negotiated settlement. You need someone with authority to make that deal. Kill the leader and you have no one to negotiate with. Second, when you kill a leader, you create a power vacuum. Different factions compete to fill that vacuum. And during a war, the most extreme and violent faction usually wins that competition. So by killing the leader, you do not weaken your enemy. You radicalize them. You ensure that whoever takes over will be less pragmatic and more committed to total war. Ali Larijani was known as a pragmatic figure. He was someone Western diplomats believed they could eventually negotiate with. Once this war reached a point where both sides were exhausted, there was a path to approach him and work out a ceasefire. He had the credibility and influence to bring together the different factions of the Iranian government and implement an agreement. With Larijani dead, that path no longer exists. The Israelis and Americans have eliminated the very person who might have helped end this war, short of total destruction. And the question you have to ask is whether this was a mistake or whether it was intentional. Because if the goal truly is the permanent destruction of Iran, then eliminating the people who might negotiate peace makes a certain terrible sense. This is why I keep emphasizing that both sides are pursuing maximalist objectives. The Israelis and Americans want to destroy Iran as a functioning nation state. The Iranians want to destroy the global economy to reshape reality itself. Neither side is interested in compromise. Neither side is looking for an off-ramp. And now with the assassination of Larijani, even if someone wanted to find an off-ramp, it may no longer be possible. Let me take a step back now and explain why, historically, nations have avoided assassinating each other's leaders. Because understanding this helps you see just how far outside normal parameters this conflict has gone. Throughout history, even the most bitter enemies have generally observed certain rules of warfare. One of the most important is that you do not target the enemy leadership for assassination. You might defeat them on the battlefield, you might capture them, but you do not simply murder them. This norm exists for practical reasons, not moral ones. Leaders are the people who can end wars. They have the authority to order their forces to stand down. They can sign treaties and make them stick. If you kill them, you lose the ability to achieve a negotiated end to the conflict. Moreover, assassinating leaders triggers succession crises. The resulting power struggles can be more destabilizing than the original conflict. New leaders who emerge from such crises often feel they need to prove themselves through escalation. They cannot appear weak. They cannot be seen as backing down from the predecessor's commitments. So the war intensifies rather than winding down. By assassinating Larijani, the Israelis and Americans have signaled that they are not interested in any future negotiation with Iran. They have burned the bridge to peace before it could even be built. And the Iranians have received that message clearly. They understand now that this is a war of annihilation, and they will respond accordingly. This brings me to what I believe we will see in the coming weeks and months. And I want to be very clear that these are assessments based on strategic logic, not predictions with certainty. The fog of war is real. Unexpected developments can change everything. First, expect the attacks on GCC energy infrastructure to intensify. The Iranians have made their strategic calculation. If they cannot win militarily, they will make the economic cost of this war unbearable for the entire world. Saudi oil facilities are vulnerable. Qatari gas installations are vulnerable. Even with American air defenses, these targets cannot be protected against a sustained missile campaign. Second, watch for the Houthis to escalate their operations in the Red Sea. Closing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in coordination with Hormuz closure would be devastating. Global shipping would be paralyzed. Supply chains that were already stressed from recent years would collapse entirely. The economic consequences would make the 2008 financial crisis look minor by comparison. Third, pay attention to Iraq. American forces in Iraq are already being targeted by Iranian-aligned militias. As this war escalates, those attacks will intensify. The goal will be to force a choice. Either the Americans defend their positions with massive force risking a wider war in Iraq, or they withdraw and lose a critical staging area for operations against Iran. Fourth, minor developments in Lebanon. Hezbollah has the largest and most sophisticated arsenal of any non-state actor in the world. They have tens of thousands of rockets and missiles capable of reaching every part of Israel. So far, they have shown relative restraint. But if the Iranians decide to activate this front, Israel will face a multi-front war it simply cannot sustain. Fifth, watch for cyber attacks. This dimension of the conflict has received less attention, but it may prove decisive. Both sides have sophisticated cyber capabilities. Attacks on critical infrastructure, including power grids, water treatment facilities, and financial systems, could cause chaos that parallels or exceeds the physical destruction. And finally, do not lose sight of the nuclear dimension. Iran is now closer than ever to weapons capability. Some analysts believe they may already have crossed key thresholds. If they perceive this war as truly existential, the temptation to pursue an overt nuclear deterrent will be overwhelming. And once they cross that line, the entire strategic equation changes permanently. Now, let me address a question that many of you are probably asking. What does this mean for the rest of the world? How will this conflict affect people who live far from the Middle East? The answer is that the effects will be profound, and they will be felt everywhere. Energy prices are going to rise dramatically. Even if the worst-case scenarios do not materialize, the insurance costs for shipping through contested waters will skyrocket. Oil and gas contracts will price in the risk of further escalation. Your heating bills, your fuel costs, your electricity prices, all of these will increase substantially. Inflation, which many had hoped was finally coming under control, will surge again. Higher energy costs feed through to every sector of the economy. Food prices will rise because agriculture is energy intensive. Manufacturing costs will rise because factories run on electricity and require materials that must be shipped. Service costs will rise because service providers need to cover their own increased expenses. Financial markets are going to be extremely volatile. Defense stocks may rise, energy stocks may rise, at least in the short term. But broader market indices will be under pressure as investors flee to safe havens. If you have retirement savings or investments, you need to understand that this conflict creates significant risk to their value. Supply chains that route through the affected regions will be disrupted. Many products that you use every day contain components manufactured in Asia that are shipped through the Suez Canal or the Red Sea. If those routes become impassable or prohibitively expensive, you will see shortages and delays for everything from electronics to clothing to household goods. And there is a broader geopolitical realignment taking place that will reshape the world order for decades to come. Countries that have tried to maintain neutrality will be forced to choose sides. Alliances that have held for generations may fracture under the strain. The institutions that have governed international relations since World War II may prove inadequate to manage a crisis of this magnitude. I want to leave you with some thoughts on what individuals can do in the face of these developments, because it is easy to feel powerless when observing events of this scale, but there are steps you can take to protect yourself and your family. First, stay informed. But stay informed through reliable sources that provide context and analysis, not just headlines designed to generate clicks. Understand the strategic logic behind what is happening. That knowledge will help you anticipate developments rather than simply reacting to them. Second, review your personal financial situation. Ensure you have some resilience built into your household economy. This might mean having some emergency savings. It might mean reducing debt to give yourself more flexibility. It might mean diversifying any investments you have to reduce exposure to regional risks. Third, think about your energy consumption. Higher prices are coming regardless of how this conflict evolves. Taking steps now to reduce your energy usage will help cushion the impact when those price increases arrive. Fourth, maintain community connections. In times of crisis, communities that can support each other fare better than isolated individuals. Know your neighbors. Participate in local organizations. Build the networks that can provide mutual aid if things get difficult. And fifth, do not lose hope. History is not linear. Catastrophes do happen, but so do recoveries. Human beings have survived worse crises than this and emerged to build better futures. Whatever happens in the Middle East, the story does not end there. New chapters will be written, and you can be part of writing them. The situation we face is serious. I will not minimize that. But understanding what is happening is the first step toward navigating it successfully. And by watching this video, by seeking out this analysis, you have taken that first step. Stay alert. Stay informed. And above all, stay safe. Don't stop here. The world is full of developments that will shape your future. Click on the next video and join us as we continue to analyze the forces reshaping our world in real time.